Now, lost in the grind of daily life, it's easy to forget the importance of a nice quiet place, having fresh air like this, and basically maintaining the balance of environment. But with automobiles playing a bigger role in our daily lives in every part of the world, well, it's important to have a green hero from the automotive world as well, like the Fluence ZE. Now ZE here means zero emission. After all, this Renault is an electric vehicle. Sure, it looks almost identical to the Fluence that we see on Indian roads. But that's because Renault wanted people to think of this as an ordinary, everyday car and a very real alternative to your current car. However, there are a few cosmetic tweaks to mark it as special. The ZE features a chrome band with two eyelets at each end of the grille. The rear tail lamps get a mesh effect with LEDs for a hint of that sci-fi look. It's hard to make out, but the rear overhang of the ZE is 13 centimeters longer than the standard Fluence. It really has been disguised very well. The added length helps to accommodate the hefty battery pack while leaving 317 liters of luggage space. Sure, it's much lesser than normal, but it will do. On the inside though, it feels like a proper Fluence. The cabin is spacious and comfortable, with everything looking and feeling quite normal. But when you turn on the ignition, you know this is different. Move the key to the on position and you are greeted with complete silence. But prod the throttle and off you go. While the number of petrol-electric hybrid offerings has shot up, Renault has stuck to a pure electric configuration for the Fluence ZE. Now this saves weight because you aren't carrying an extra engine around, and Renault feel that the single synchronous 95 bhp electric motor is good enough for most urban dwellers. From the driver's seat, the ZE feels pretty much like any other automatic car, except for the unnerving silence and incredible responsiveness. It's naturally endowed with 23.4 kilograms of torque right from the first RPM. The Fluence's electric powertrain is quite responsive and easy to drive in stop-go city conditions. But at the same time, the Fluence ZE felt capable of running at triple-digit speeds out on the highway as well. But drive fast and there is a price to pay. Driving smoothly pays huge dividends in an electric car because it helps you extend your range. But if you want to really put your foot down, the Fluence has good response like this. But then just don't think that it will be manically quick. After all, it is only about 95 bhp. While cruising at highway speeds, power consumption does increase. Renault say that in the worst case scenario, the ZE will go a minimum 80 kilometers on a full charge, which is more than enough for most people's trip to the office and back. And you can recharge the batteries completely in 6 to 8 hours via a wall box at home or office. Now, even though it lacks the flexibility of a traditional petrol or diesel car, owning and charging a ZE should feel quite straightforward after a few days. However, driving the ZE will take some getting used to. The steering wheel feels like a video game steering wheel that doesn't have force feedback, so it's very light and numb and just, well, you can point it in whichever direction you want to go without any hassles. But at motorway speeds, I find it a bit too fidgety because it's really quite lively, even at the dead ahead position. This electric vehicle also uses regenerative braking to extend range. But thankfully, the pedal had a nice bite and a crisp feel. The ZE also has 50-50 weight distribution, and that's thanks to the additional batteries in the boot. And this meant that the suspension had to be retuned extensively so that the ride would match up to Renault standards. Now the Fluence feels a bit like a magic carpet because it has that hush of silence and it just glides over smooth roads. But the second you hit rough roads, you get the feeling that the magic carpet has been whisked away from under you and replaced by a lumpy mattress, because that extra weight of the batteries, well, it does take a toll on the suspension. At the end of the day, the ZE's greatest accomplishment is that it feels so normal to drive and to own. Renault is attacking carbon emissions on other fronts as well. The Kangoo ZE aims to serve intercity goods and people carriers. It retains its spacious cargo bay even as it swaps diesel power for electric. I hopped in to see how this vehicle would drive. The Kangoo ZE's electric setup is shared with the Fluence, of course. The battery pack is of course in a different orientation. The motor itself is the same, though it's been tuned differently. It delivers lesser power, so when you put your foot down, it doesn't feel as quick as the Fluence. But of course, here what matters is torque, because it's meant to carry heavy loads, and that's available from the word go. And the regenerative brakes have been tuned specifically for the Kangoo ZE. The Kangoo ZE's regenerative braking is really quite strong. When you lift off the accelerator, it actually feels like you're braking. But with such strong braking, every time you just lift off the accelerator, you need to learn how to drive this. And once you do, it's really quite nice because you end up using the brakes less. Electric vehicle drivers will be pleased to save on running costs, but even more pleased to know that they are contributing to the well-being of the environment. Now, while these electric cars don't have tailpipes, obviously you don't have emissions. But that's not really the case, because the electricity is being generated somewhere, right? So there is a carbon dioxide emission attached to every kilometer you drive of these cars. But that depends on how the power is being generated. So if it's a coal-fired power station, it's roughly about 100 grams per kilometer, which is lesser than any of the most efficient cars out there. But if it's from a renewable energy source like wind or solar, then it's really 0 grams per kilometer. It's no surprise that Indians won't get a chance to play environmental hero with Renault ZE cars anytime soon. And while Europeans can drive home a Fluence ZE home today, it's not going to be that easy to convert the drivers. Yes, they are priced very attractively, on par with their diesel counterparts. But even in the developed markets, range anxiety, despite the growing charging infrastructure, will curb the appeal of these pure electric cars. Let's hope though that it catches on. Then we can all breathe a little bit easier.